Yo, what's good, everyone? It's Jack. It's the Goat again. Like I said in the last video, I was going to put out another video just to kind of make up for the lack of content Black Clover didn't give us. So, this video, I'm basing it off of a conversation I've had both online and real life with friends and just people in the Naruto community. And there's a lot of speculation on the Uchiha and the woulds, could have, should haves, and all of that good stuff. That I think it's very easy for people to misunderstand and not get the full picture. So I'm going to go over just some questions and kind of go in depth on why things that went down the way they did. Because there are some answers and, that are there in black and white, and then there are answers that you kind of have to just put the pieces together yourself. They're answers, but they're answers that kind of make you connect the dots. So let's get right into it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and press the notification bell so you know when a new video comes out. Also follow me on Instagram. The link will be in the comment section, or not in the comment section, excuse me, in the description below. I post a lot of content there as well, and you'll also get a notification from me every time I upload a video to YouTube. So yeah, please support the channel and make sure that you get the content you want. So, let's get into this. The most common thing I get asked is, why didn't the people of the village stand up for the Uchiha? Which is a very fair question, right? We knew that the Uchiha were under intense surveillance and at a time were being pushed further and further into the outskirts of the village to set up for what would be the climax as far as their future goes. And the thing is that the people didn't really get a chance to, for the reason that the Uchiha were often silenced. Now, something that you can easily look over if you're reading the manga is that during the Third Great Ninja War, we had some characters that made names for themselves in that war. Three of them, of course, being the three legendary Sannin, Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya, being given the name Legendary Sannin by Hanzo of the Mist. Now, while they made a name for themselves, we also had a name for the White Fang, who was said to be as strong as the three Sannin at that time. We're going to dead it right now while we're on it. He is not as strong as them in their prime. There's nothing that suggests that, because the Sannin didn't really peak in the wartime. They peaked around when we saw them. That they were at their strongest then. So while that is very impressive, it is nothing like the Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade that we got to know in the Naruto series. But not to take away anything from him, but he made a name for himself around that time as well. Now, another ninja that made a name for himself was Fugaku Uchiha. Now, that's Sasuke and Itachi's father. He made many feats in that war to where his name became revered and was on par with the White Fang. And the Uchiha were thinking that this was probably the best case scenario because, they knew that their clan was not in good standings with the village and the village elders and whatnot. And they thought that now that his name would be put out there, the people of the Leaf would recognize the Uchiha and what they do for the Leaf. Instead, what happens is that Fugaku Uchiha's feats were silenced. They were not spoken about to the public or amongst other ninja for that matter. So anything that Fugaku did on the battlefield was just washed to the wayside. So it's kind of hard for people to stand up for people that they don't really know about. And they didn't really know that the Uchiha were in this very fragile predicament. And could the Uchiha have, rioted, or maybe not rioted, but like let's say they made picket signs and started marching around the Leaf. What would that have done for them? That would have expedited the process, if anything. Because the Uchiha clan was on a one-way track to extinction. That was their destiny. And we're kind of going to get into it. So let's get to the next question. Could they have just left the village? I mean, that's honestly a thought that never really crossed my mind as far as thinking about the possibilities of what could, should, and all of that could have happened. Could they just use their Legigon instead of the Sharingan? And the answer is yes, they could have. Would things have turned out differently? No. The same thing would have happened, but just in a different place. The thing is that the Leaf was not the only one that thought the Uchiha were maybe too strong. Now, I want to get into the Uzumaki for just a second, because these are two clans that shared the same exact destiny. The Uzumaki clan got eradicated by other villages because the other villages thought they were too strong to keep going, and they became fearful of their power. So what they did was they teamed up and they stomped on that village. So if the Uchiha left the Leaf village, one, the Leaf probably would not let that happen. But if it did happen, if they established a village of just the Uchiha clan, the other villages, as well as the Leaf probably, would have stomped on that village, and that would just give them more of a reason to. The Leaf could have looked at it as defecting, and why would you go from being a part of the Leaf to wanting to start your own village if you didn't agree with what we're doing? So it presents a conflict of interest and potential strife in the future. So that could have just expedited the process of extermination. So I don't think it's just as easy as relocating. And then there's also speculation on why didn't Itachi just say no to exterminating the clan. Now, Itachi was in a situation where I just famously say he was damned if he didn't and damned if he did. The thing is, it's kind of like when you're given a piece of information, you were better off just not knowing that information. Because now that you have it, if you do one thing, you're screwed this way. If you do the other thing, you're screwed the other way. So the thing is, if he said no to Danzo, Danzo would have just stomped him out right there. Now, I'm not saying Danzo was stronger than Itachi. I'm not saying Itachi's stronger than Danzo. I don't even want to make it a versus battle right now, because that's not what this video is for. But, I mean, if Itachi said no, Itachi's life would have been over effectively, because Danzo surely would have had his Anbu track down Itachi if he didn't deal with him himself right there to kill Itachi, because now Itachi is liable to leak this information that Danzo wants the Sharingan to the Uchiha. And the other thing that leads to that damned if he didn't, damned if he didn't, because if Itachi got back to the clan safely, if he told his father, the head of the Uchiha, what was going on, this would spark the coup and give Fugaku no real other choice than to follow through, because their backs were already against the wall. And if they know a fight is coming to them, the best thing to do is to get ready and gear up for a war. So it's a very fragile situation. So what Itachi did was he decided to take it upon himself so that the clan doesn't gear up for a war. They don't know what's coming, and they kind of get silenced in the dead of night. It was definitely a messed up thing to do, and we can't, Itachi's a lot of people's favorite characters. Itachi's also a lot of people's worst character, because you talk to a lot of people, and people will say, I will never sell out my family for, a village or whatever. The thing is that Itachi's, his mindset was so much farther than just the village. It was even stated in the manga by the third Hokage that Itachi's mindset was on a Kage level when he was around 7 years old. So imagine when he's in his teens, his mindset is so much larger. He sees so far ahead into the future. And we see this further on into the series. This guy is setting post-mortem traps, to make sure that his brother stays okay, and all of that good stuff. And like, he's probably one of the only Uchiha who weren't blinded by his Sharingan. So he was able to see that the clan and the village were on a one-way collision course for just utter destruction, and the clan was going to lose regardless, and the Leaf would have taken unnecessary losses if Itachi had let this happen. So it was a hard choice, but it's one that he had to make for the betterment of the Leaf. But of course, we did see that he wanted Sasuke alive. Now, Danzo was not planning to keep his end of the bargain to keep Sasuke alive, to even leave Itachi alone. He wanted the Sharingan gone. He wanted the Sharingan gone.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine, and you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So Itachi played his cards so that Danzo feared touching Sasuke, and he put himself in the Akatsuki for a lot of reasons, but also one of them being that a form of protection. No one's going to come after Itachi except for his brother. That's the way he wanted it. So Danzo had no choice but to respect Itachi's wishes, because he didn't know whether Itachi could be lurking around him or not. As we saw in the manga and the anime, that he put both of his guards under genjutsu, and as he threatened Danzo to his face. So Itachi really played his cards the best way he could. He got dealt a very, very crappy hand, and he played it phenomenally, if you ask me. Itachi's one of the better characters, maybe not necessarily morally, but as far as, you know, an in-depth character, he is well-rounded in that sense. And at no way did he try to defend himself as far as what he did. He knew what he did was wrong. And I also wanted to make a slight side note to Itachi's sickness. While it was kind of up in the air in the manga and the anime, and there's a lot of speculation online saying that it was probably something like, I think I saw something like tuberculosis or some other diseases, real-world diseases. I full-on believe that it was Sharingan related. Now, if we look at the Sharingan and the evolution of it and what it does to the user, we can kind of clearly see that the Sharingan was the reason why Itachi got as sick as he did. So if we look into what gives the user the first tomoe, the second, the third, and into the Mangekyo, it has to do with an influx of intense emotions. Now, they don't have to be negative necessarily, but given the times that they were in, which were war times, they were more than likely to be negative emotions, to spark that growth. So we keep seeing the eyes evolve when things start getting tougher on the person physically and emotionally, especially emotionally. So when you see a tomoe evolve, that means a trauma has been settled into a person. And then when you hit the Mangekyo, the Mangekyo is the ultimate trauma. You know, if we're talking about negative things, and that's really all we're introduced to, unless we're talking about Boruto, then we also see that the positive emotions do play a part. But just talking about Naruto and what we saw, to get to this Mangekyo, it was said that you had to kill your best friend. That is not wholly true. If you needed to get it fast, yeah, killing your best friend's going to do it. But you can also just see your friend die, or see something else that is really traumatizing to you. Now, once you get the Mangekyo, and you keep getting these traumatizing experiences, what happens, I mean, your eyes don't evolve any further from there unless you have the blood of Hashirama. So what happens is, I can only assume that the eyes, since they can't grow anymore, they start having a very adverse effect on the user and their health, and it starts slowly eating away at them. So I believe that Itachi's cancer came from his eyes, and them not being able to grow anymore, since they had reached their peak, and he had to firsthand kill his entire clan with OATz. So it's I think that's where his sickness came from. Just saying. But that's kind of the Uchiha part that I wanted to kind of sum up. So I hope that made sense to you guys. But I wanted to also get into something that is also becomes, for whatever reason, a debated topic amongst the community of the Naruto fan base, is just the Sharingan period. So I kind of want to get into this, and what's going to make this kind of tricky is that we're not given the best specimens for the Sharingan and what the Sharingan actually does for a user. Instead, we have the guideline, and then we have extremely special cases. So let's just understand the Sharingan first and the functions of it and what it does for the user. So one of the uses of the Sharingan is the Eye of Insight. And I'm reading off of the Naruto fandom page, the wiki, for the Sharingan. So, the Eye of Insight. The user can see chakra giving it color in order to distinguish it by its composition and source. Though not as capable in regard as the Byakugan, it can see through some, but not all, obstructions and detect irregularities in a person's chakra flow, such as those caused by genjutsu influence. To continue the Eye of Insight, the user is granted incredible clarity of perception, enabling them to read lips or mimic something like a pencil movement. Sasuke's Sharingan was even able to see on a cellular level, and in combat allows them to see fast moving on. So like this is what we really know about the Sharingan, that sort of stuff. And then the user is able to copy almost any jutsu they see, memorizing ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu with near perfect accuracy. They can either perform that jutsu or modify it to suit their needs, as when Sasuke bases the lion combo on Rock Lee's front lotus. Again, Sharingan users need prerequisite abilities before they can mimic a jutsu they have seen. And for that reason, they cannot, for example, reproduce Kekkei Genkai, abilities they do not have, or nature transformations they haven't learned before. So these are some of the functions of the Sharingan. And a lot of people, believe it or not, believe they can just copy whatever. When we clearly saw during the training exams for Sasuke, yeah, he could copy Rock Lee's movements and his whole fighting style, but his body was not able to keep up with what he copied, so he had to train his body, and that's why Kakashi trained him the way he did to fight, because he was going to go fight Gaara, and the only fighting style that was shown to be able to touch Gaara was Rock Lee's fighting style, so that was the best way to go. Another function of the Sharingan is the Eye of Hypnotism. Now the user can perform what is generically called genjutsu. While there are various manifestations and purposes of the ability, the better known one is through eye contact, which suggests thoughts and actions to a target, coercing them to divulge information or act in a particular way, potentially without the target's awareness. In extreme cases, the Sharingan user can take complete control of the target's body, forcing them to do exactly as controller wishes. The Uchiha are particularly infamous for using the ability on tailed beasts, and in fact can enter its or a Jin Shuriki subconscious to more precisely control the beast's chakra. Now, another one is, while not an ability per se, the Sharingan user can appear as if they were able to see the future. The user must perfectly mimic every move and blah blah blah. I don't really want to read that one because we only saw that with Kakashi and they kind of just wrote it out. And then they also talk about the Mangekyo, but I don't really want to talk about the Mangekyo Sharingan right now because the basic function of the Sharingan is what people don't seem to understand, and the basic user of the Sharingan as well. So what does the Sharingan do for the user? First, we have to understand what the typical user looks like. Now, when we were explained about the Uchiha heritage and the Uzumaki lineage, we understood that there was a line that was split when it came to Hagoromo. Hagoromo split the body, which is the chakra, with the prowess, the eye of insight. So while one got the power, they did not get the eye of insight. While the one got the eye of insight, they did not get the power that the other did. So the typical user of the Sharingan is not going to look like Sasuke. It's not going to look like Itachi. It's not going to look like Shisui. It won't look like Fugaku. It's not going to look like Madara. It's not going to look like Obito. I think the most accurate thing that we saw that could mimic somewhat average Sharingan user is Kakashi. While some people might be yelling at me right now about what I just said, it's true. So the thing is that we have very special cases, the ones that I just listed minus Kakashi, that these Uchiha had a ridiculous amount of stamina. They had so much chakra that they should not have had. So we have guys that have an overpowered ability with this overpowered and unprecedented amount of chakra for no good reason other than faulty writing. And it kind of sucks because we have this fan base of the Uchiha that just believe every single Uchiha was just broken and could just wipe out everything, and that's not the case at all. But then we also have another fan base who believe that the Uchiha were just like nothing special at all. The thing is like there's a very fine middle ground. The average Uchiha was not spamming fire jutsus. They were not spamming lightning jutsus at all. Your average user was a fairly proficient taijutsu fighter, and that was it. And that's how they were made. That is exactly what the Sharingan is for. Just like the Byakugan, how they're not spamming all these crazy ninjutsu techniques. They're very focused on taijutsu because taijutsu does not utilize chakra. So they're able to reserve what they have to focus on their Sharingan and maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 ninjutsu attacks that will most definitely land once the opening has been made. But the Sharingan is for efficient taijutsu. Like we just read, that it's able to read fine movements and fast movements. And the most perfect example that we saw about this was when Sasuke was fighting Naruto in the Final Valley the first time as a kid. When he got his third tomoe, and Naruto is moving back and forth, he's running towards Sasuke. In Sasuke's eyes, he looks like he's really just kind of prodding along. When in reality, Naruto's running so fast, he's kicking up an entire wall of water when he's rushing towards Sasuke, and Sasuke is able to redirect that momentum by flipping him upwards. That is the best example of what the Sharingan is supposed to do for the user. You're not out here just using Chidori in all kinds of ways. I'm sorry, Sasuke, he's one of my favorite characters, but he's not a prime example of what an average Uchiha looks like. But then we also have a guy kind of like Shisui. I know I did put him on that list of Uchiha who were kind of special cases. Shisui Uchiha, his body flicker ability wasn't exactly a ninjutsu. I don't think that is qualified as ninjutsu. I can look it up. But what body flicker is what you see every single ninja do. It actually can't be considered ninjutsu because Lee even does this. When you see them do that kind of, they're standing here and then they're gone, that's body flicker. Now all Shisui did was apply that technique and make it a more make it into a fighting style, which is insane. And he's still reserving chakra when he does this. So I can kind of put Shisui into that the more average Uchiha, or not average, but he's not much of a special case like Sasuke, Madara, Obito, definitely special cases. Given this thought process and what we read and what we just talked about, a question that does come up that I want to answer now that we've gone through all this is it safe to say that the clan could have put up at least a really good fight against the Leaf? And I'm going to say not really. We got to think about what the Leaf is, first of all. The Leaf is a conglomerate of superpowers. When we were given the story of the beginnings of the Leaf Village and Madara and Hashirama and Tobirama's background story, we got a little glimpse of what the what the Leaf is made of, and like I said, is made of superpower. There was a moment when Madara and Hashirama were standing on top of what was going to be the stone monuments for the Hokage. Now, they were just kind of talking and impressed about how the Leaf has grown and how many clans have joined. And they had the Uchiha there, of course, the Senju, which are the two strongest clans around in that warring state at the time. And then they had, I'm blanking on the name for whatever reason, the Hyuga clan. They had made a name for themselves. Then they had, they spoke of, I believe, the Nara clan as well as the other two to make the trio. And then they left off on the Sarutobi clan, and that's when they were like, whoa, the Sarutobi clan wants to join? That's pretty crazy. So this is a village made up of pretty much only the strongest warriors and ninja. And the Uchiha, I'm not going to take away from the Uchiha. The Uchiha are still one of the strongest clans ever. The thing is that, again, we only have special cases to go off of. So not every single one is going to look like Sasuke. Not every single one is going to look like Madara or Obito. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look like a lot of fodder Jonin, to be completely honest. But they're going to be very proficient in taijutsu for sure. The thing though that gives them an edge, that kind of puts the Uchiha on the track to being at least an efficient Jonin, is that the Sharingan takes out essentially 2 or 3 elements of battle and strengthens 2 out of 3. So what it takes out is taijutsu, because the other fighter is usually not going to be able to keep up with someone with a Sharingan in a battle of fisticuffs, right? And then they're taking out the element of genjutsu completely, because the eyes see right through that automatically. Now, what it strengthens for the user is taijutsu, so while it takes it away from the opponent, it also adds that gap because they have the advantage there. Another thing that it strengthens is genjutsu. Now, while it takes away from the user, it gives the Uchiha that advantage of using genjutsu through their Sharingan. And the Sharingan, as we know, has a lot of advanced genjutsu applications. So it really leaves the opponent to kind of overwhelm the Uchiha, the Sharingan user, which is pretty much what we see to be the case when you're fighting Uchiha, is just overwhelming them, whether that be with speed or raw power or anything. That's just how the eye puts them at an advantage. So it could get them a good way through a coup, but it's not going to let them win the battle, unfortunately. It's not this broken ability everyone believes. Not every single Uchiha is going to get the Mangekyo Sharingan. That's not how it works. And they kind of do a good job in writing this, but not every single person is going to get their Sharingan the same way. Some people get it earlier, some people get it later. And not every single traumatic experience is going to force your Sharingan to grow. That's just not how it works, because if that were the case, then Sasuke would have had his Mangekyo Sharingan when he was 7 or 8 years old, whenever that went down for him. Because his entire clan died. He saw his mom and dad die right in front of him, and then it was played in his head for 72 hours as a child. So, I mean, if he didn't get it then that just says that everyone's Sharingan develops differently. And it would need something different for Sasuke to develop his even further. So, that's really all I got about the Uchiha in the Sharingan. I kind of just wanted to touch on it because I don't feel like there's a huge understanding on the happenings of Uchiha and just the way the Sharingan and the average Uchiha works. So hopefully that all made sense. Put anything that you think I missed in the comment section below. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Hit the notification bell so you know when I upload a video. Follow me on Instagram. It's in the description below. That's where I post more content. And I also let everyone know when I post another video on YouTube. And I'm also a little more interactive there. So thank you guys for tuning in. It has been a long night. I'm starting to lose my voice again. So I'm going to cut this a little short. This has been OATz, and thank you for tuning in.